So, for my final project, I decided to have this be the front. I really like democratic and exploration as being the most important aspects. So, going into it immediately, the philosopher that I focused on was William Glasser. I really liked him because of his medium control, the focus that he had on a cooperative learning environment, just the fact that the students still had a lot of control, but also that the teacher was putting a lot of guidelines around. It just made for a very, very balanced atmosphere. I liked that we are in control of ourselves, that the students know that, the teacher knows that, and because of that, we have different responsibilities and roles in the classroom. One of the teacher responsibilities is to be able to think of the students' strengths, to focus on those instead of just focusing on the weaknesses, and that creates that positive feeling and rapport between everyone. One of the students' responsibilities is to be able to be a guide and a friend to those in the classroom. It's all focused on that love and communication, and so when we are doing this together, they're able to understand that they are having a role with one another. One of the things that I like for my democratic classroom, let's see, it goes this way. So it's just the fact that we're focusing on student voice, that everybody has a voice in the classroom and needs to be heard. And because of that, we'll have lots of classroom discussions, meetings, where I want students to participate, but I understand that there may be times where they need to warm up and eventually feel comfortable doing that. I like the fact that Glasser also emphasizes that students need leadership positions. This is a time when they are developing their self-governing behaviors, and they're able to use those and practice them in an environment that is safe. And so some of the student leadership positions I had were class jobs, like being a greeter, things like that. So just being able to give them that independence, but also the control. Next, I talked about the motivations. So I focused on intrinsic and extrinsic. So for intrinsic, I talked about how this is just students being able to find motivation inside of themselves. And the teacher is able to foster those kinds of things through helping students understand that learning is the true reward rather than receiving something physical or even just more of a reward. Also extrinsic was the other focus that I did, and that was that motivation comes from an outside reward. And so lots of different things can be implemented in the classroom to be able to create a reward system, give like gold stars for participation, have classroom parties, and then examples for an intrinsic motivation would be having a democratic classroom environment where students feel that they're making a difference and they want to continue doing that. Let's see. Next, I go on to my rules and consequences. So for this, let's see, I'll get it straight. So for this part, the rules that I talked about were to listen to the teacher, to be kind to one another, to always be curious and asking questions, and to follow directions quickly. These are very needful in the classroom, and being able to do that will help all of the students to be able to interact kindly with one another. There are also different consequences that occur. Some of the consequences that I talked about were positive and negative. So receiving rewards, having a classroom party, being able to have extra recess time, those were all positive. And then as far as consequences that are negative, it was things like getting a verbal warning, having to talk with parents after so many warnings, and then eventually being sent to the principal's office. The way that I would implement these rules that I find so important are mainly through just the first weeks of implementing them constantly, reminding the students of the importance of them, and then if it is forgotten throughout the year, just reminding them, having them posted up in the classroom, and just telling students of what importance they are to me, and try to find a way that they can find that they're important for them too. Next, I have my prevention. And so for this, I talk about how I'm able to develop rapport with my students. So one of the things that I want to focus on is how I can cheer them on and how they're responsible for cheering others on in our classroom. That it's not just me that's there to be the cheerleader, but that everybody gets to take the part and be in the cheer squad and be happy and excited. So I want to be able to do that, and one way that I want to see this and cheer others on is by catching them doing service. And I want this to be something that is a focus in the classroom, that we're constantly looking for ways to serve one another, to be kind, to reach out and help others so that they can be supported. I want to be known as my students' biggest supporter, just so that they realize that I'm on their side. One of the classroom procedures that I want to set up is just lining up. I think that that's a very important aspect of being able to learn, is just having this quiet time that, yes, it is going to be silly sometimes, but just being able to understand that it's a time to be quiet and line up and orderly. And so anyway, I found this cute little chant that I really like that I'm going to read, and I want this to be something that we say every day as we line up. So it's 1, 2, listen and do, 3, 4, face the door, 5, 6, fingers on lips, 7, 8, line up straight, 9, 10, let the quiet walking begin. And so this will just become a part of our classroom where we're constantly talking about this, learning this, repeating it, and we'll do that throughout the first weeks and then repeat as necessary throughout the rest of the year. So one of the next parts is interventions. This is a very important part just because students need to understand that you're there to help them and that their learning needs to be continually accepted, but there are times when there are misbehaviors that have to be noted and changed. And so I have right here just different strategies of how to encounter different problems, such as like a disruption, that a student is distracted with an object. You would just quietly take that away from them and continue with the lesson. Or if a student is continually having this chronic misbehavior of stealing or hurting other students, then this would result in a more serious or severe punishment or consequence of maybe having to talk with the principal or call the parents or sit in a different spot in the classroom. And so through the different class objectives for classroom management, I've been able to learn that focusing on the different strategies from a variety of theorists is very helpful in understanding the different variety of ways that we can intervene in my own classroom. The final section that I have is my classroom map. So this was really exciting to make, and I really liked being able to organize my classroom. Let's see. So I have it organized with the desks here, and this is the main whiteboard. I'll have my teacher's desk there so that I'm always able to see everyone. In the back we have our reading area where everybody can kind of be separated and have their own area to be in and be quiet. Then I have our reading area as far as like working one-on-one with the teacher. I have our kidney table, and I have my filing cabinet right there close to us. Next I have the cupboards and cabinets, and there's this big area where we're able to line up. And I have my other resources here, but overall, I felt like the purpose of my classroom, or the reason that I wanted to have this medium control classroom, is just to be able to give the students in my class the opportunity to make choices, to explore on their own, and to overall be able to have a positive learning experience that can be benefited by having control that is within reason. And so that was my project.